Assalamu alaikum. Let's look at this another story about Myself and Others by Louis Couperus. Now, Louis Couperus is basically a Dutch writer who became famous for his work Elinware. And what's remarkable about his writing is the uncanny resemblance to Tolstoy's style of writing. There is a lot of dry humor, polished sarcasm. The tone is entirely flat, which sort of enhances the sentiments the characters express or impress. So, this particular work has been taken from a collection called Legend of the Blue Coast, and you'll find only two characters here of note: the narrator and the stranger. Both are named Louis. The narrator is named Louis Desailles, and the stranger is Louis de Saint Gas. Now, this is one fine evening when the narrator is sitting all by himself, enjoying his solitude, when he is joined by this stranger called Louis de Saint Gas. The stranger, he starts talking, like they start having a small talk about the climate, about how they ended up being here. And in the process, we realize that the stranger has followed his aunt to Nice, who has been recommended by the doctors to visit for her health. Now, this in itself is surprising and more suspicious because no doctor would recommend an elderly woman with health issues to come to Nice in this month, in the month of August. But then the narrator, he keeps quiet, not really voicing out his suspicion. Then they continue the talk, in which we realize that this person is quite boastful and likes to show off his wealth. We realize that this person, that is the stranger, is quite pampered by his aunt, and the sole purpose of his life is to just cater to the whims of his aunt, following her wherever she wants or expects him to come. We also see that he is quite good at bluffing. There are a couple of things that just shows that he's an imposter. One is the mention of his aunt being, coming here for her health. Two, the mention of partridges, how his aunt loves partridges and that's what they eat often. And that would be suspicious because it is not the season for partridges and nobody would find it. And he later on we find the narrator confirming it with the hotel caretaker. Three, there is mention of towards the end of the conversation where they have discussed everything, including the amount of money he spends on gaming tables or the kind of friends he keeps. And the narrator, he also reveals how he is he does not really have that much cash, even though he does love to play or gamble. He does not really have money to spare because he's only paid 150 francs a month as a cashier at a hotel called Hotel Majestic in Cizem. So, after having talked about all of this, he is ready to, that is, a stranger is ready to loan a certain amount for to our narrator, who is absolute stranger, right? To play pool, not for any important reason, not for any serious need, but just to gamble. And so all of these things raise the hackles of a narrator, and he is kind of suspicious about this person, understanding or believing him to be an impostor, a con artist. So then they make a promise to meet up next day at the station to go to Monte Carlo and play pool, play game, gamble. So the next day, our narrator fails to keep the appointment and once again goes at the appointed hour, as in like the usual hour that he visits this place, Promenade des Anglais. He goes there and he meets up with the stranger. He finds the stranger already sitting at his bench. He is kind of sulking right now. The stranger is sulking because the narrator did not keep his appointment. So he asks why he didn't keep his appointment, and the narrator, he says that he has been busy at the hotel, so he could not free himself from the ledgers or the issues at the hotel as a cashier. The stranger easily forgives him, and then they start talking about everything under the sun, literature, plays, people, everything. And then they talk about, he is a great conversationalist. We find that the stranger is really good at making small talk about, and he is very well read, and he's like really cultured, cultured or cultivated, I don't know, but he gives off the vibe of a cultured person who has read extensively and keep up with the current trends. Then all of a sudden he talks about how it is 25th of August in 2 days, which is the name day for both of them because their patron saint was born on that day. And they talk about how the comparative merits or demerits of the different patron saints, Saint Louis of France and Saint Louis of Gonzague, and each has their own preference. But either way, since it is a name day for them, they promised to exchange souvenirs so that they could remember each other by. It's basically not the narrator's idea, but the stranger's idea. He says, "Okay, you have this wonderful gold coin. Why don't you, give it to me as a souvenir? And in turn, I'll give you whatever you want." And he says, "I'll give you a scarf pin." So they make this promise and to meet up the next day to give each other the souvenirs. And before they part, the stranger asks for the narrator's address where he could send a letter. The narrator, he asks, "Why do you need my address? We are going to meet each other anywhere tomorrow." It's just like, what if I have an occasion to write? And here he is given the address. In the meantime, right after the first meeting, the narrator, he has gone around to the place that the stranger has mentioned, Boulevard de Bouchard, Villa Aubert, and he has made inquiries about this person and has found that there's no such person exists. So he has confirmed his suspicion that he is an imposter, that the stranger is an imposter. So the narrator is on guard now. He cannot be fooled, right? So after the second meeting, they promised to meet up the next day to exchange the souvenirs. But very early the next morning, he has received a letter. Who's received a letter? The narrator. The narrator has received a letter from. He has been expecting a letter because the way the stranger has taken his address. So he reads the letter, and in the letter, it is, the stranger has implored. He has mentioned how he has been accosted by certain Apaches and he has been robbed of all his belongings, and now he is in huge trouble, and the narrator has to help him. So he says, "My dear Louis, dear friend Louis, you're the only one who can help me. So please lend me some of 300 francs." He says, like, "At least I need 500 francs. Somehow I'm selling everything that I have and making up money. But from you should at least give me 300 francs." And he asks him to meet him, immediately. That is like in the morning, early in the morning. Now the next, he totally disregards it, and once again he goes only at the appointed, his usual hour, not the appointed hour. He goes to his usual place, and where he finds the stranger really angry with him. He has this big scowl on his face, and he says, "Why didn't you come?" And he says, like, "Oh, did you want to meet me?" And it's like, "I sent you a letter." "You sent me a letter? I wish if you had wanted to meet me. I was in desperate need of you." There is a narrator is making up a story here, indicating how he himself was in need of huge amount of money because nearly 1,000 francs were lost from the hotel. And since he is an honest person, he did not lose it on purpose, and someone else has stolen it, but he has to be responsible. But being responsible is not enough. He has to have money. Since he cannot get any money from anyone, nor does he know anyone, he says, like, "My dear friend Louis, you are the only hope I have. You have to somehow ask your aunt for money and give it to me. I will return it to you within a week." So he's just turning the tables, and the stranger, he's aghast. He's like, "Oh, what? Why do you want? Didn't you read my letter?" And says, like, "What letter? I told you that I have been robbed. I was accosted by the Apaches, and I was robbed of all the money, and I needed money from you. I need at least 300, 400 francs from you." And the narrator, he says like, are you really kidding me? See, if I had that money, I would pay whatever I need to, fill the cash here at the hotel, you know, to make up for the money that was lost. Oh, uh, come on, seriously, you have to go and help me. And this person, the stranger, he just gets up from his seat saying, I am sorry, I cannot help you because I am myself, I'm in need of money, since you cannot be of any use to me. And moreover, he says like, okay, I am going to, sell the souvenir that I had planned to give to you, because it may or may not be genuine. If it's genuine, I would get only 100 francs. If it's not genuine, well, I'll have to, somehow go around asking for money to whoever will be ready to help me. So the stranger, he just takes his leave, saying that I'm going to find an usurer, otherwise my aunt would totally kill me. Not kill me, but yeah, I didn't get into a lot of trouble. And the narrator, when he says that I would simply commit suicide if I did not get the money, the stranger, who has been, calling him my friend, my dear best friend, he simply ups and leaves, and not really caring whether this friend, the so-called friend, is going to commit suicide for the lack of money or what. So since then, there has been no change. Everything has been, all has changed because of this one incident. Because whenever he sits there again, he feels, the excitement of having interacted with, a con master, a con artist. And yeah, a kind of a novelet, a story is created in this brief acquaintance between two Louises. I hope you enjoyed this story. I enjoyed it myself. I enjoyed reading it. I don't know about the retelling of it. Well, good luck. Thank you.